Let's take a look at the least picked survivor perks in the game and see why nobody wants to use them. Unlike killer perks, these have no synergy with any power, so they have to be good on their own, which leads to a very small variety of perks on the survivor side. Again, these statistics were taken from Nightlight, a website that tracks perks and character pick rate based on manual input, so the sample size is low. But I don't think anyone will debate about the placement of the perks featured. Blood Pact is a perk that belongs to Cheryl, a licensed survivor, so that can already affect the pick rate of a perk, as the average player might not have access to it. The effect of this perk is very interesting and like nothing else in the game. You link up with the Obsession. Once you or the Obsession are injured, you both see each other's auras, and once you heal yourselves, you get an extra haste boost of 7% as long as you are near 16 meters of each other. Just with the effect description you can understand why nobody uses this. It's way too niche. There are way better altruistic perks in the game, like Empathy, which is free, Bond, Aftercare, Empathic Connection, or the new Boon Circle of Healing, which is significantly better. And all of those perks do not depend on RNG, because the obsession mechanic of Blood Pact can lead to bad results in solo survivor matches. You might get the best Claudette you have ever seen, or you might get a mech head that lasts 5 seconds in chase because she got stuck on debris. The haste effect is also most of the time useless, as you normally heal in places where the killer is not nearby, so you are not interrupted, and you have to be nearby the other survivor, so if you get a bad one, well, the effect is wasted. It's also counterintuitive to have 2 survivors nearby in a chase, since that means that 50% of the team is wasting their time not doing generators. So, a very niche perk that belongs to a licensed character, that is worse in solo survivor and requires a full team of friends to get the most use of it, that does not boost healing speeds but instead gives information and a mostly useless speed boost, it's obvious why nobody is using it. The only real purpose of this perk is to make a survivor build video with your cracked survive with friends against a baby trapper and claim Blood Pact value. How the mighty have fallen. Just a mention of Object of Obsession can make the body hair of most killer mains spike in fear, as this was one of the most busted perks in the entire game. Originally, this perk was a wall hack that revealed the aura of the killer whenever you looked at their direction, so this was heavily abused by very good survivors in order to distract and have 5 generator chases, or to literally tell the location of the killers 24/7 in a survive with friends group against killers that had basically no counter to it. This was completely broken and could be easily abused. Now it has a similar effect in Spirit. Every 30 seconds it reveals the killer aura for 3 seconds, and every time the killer can see your aura, you can see their aura too. So it's like a more aggressive distortion that can reveal what perks the killer is using. Plus, it gives you a 6% of action speed bonus whenever the killer sees you. Now I will say a hot take. This is still a solid and usable perk, and the only reason nobody uses this anymore is because most survivors want brain dead perks like Old Object or Windows of Opportunity. The new Object of Obsession forces you to play in a more careful and aggressive way, taking note of when your aura is revealed to discover what aura perks the killer is using, which means you cannot be listening to Spotify while looping and get the most value like you could in the past. Every once in a while, a new perk design appears in the game that makes most of the player base ask, what were the devs thinking? And Quick Gambit is one of those perks. It grants a repair boost speed to any survivors working in a generator in a 24-meter radius while you are getting chased. Why would you keep the killer near the generators that are being repaired in the first place? As a survivor, you want to lead the killer as far away as possible from the gens in order to force them to either keep chasing you or to defend the generators. A killer will almost immediately go after the survivors repairing rather than chasing after the first person that left. This perk completely works against itself, making it one of the least useful perks in the entire game. which surprises me as to why it doesn't have a lower pick rate, especially considering that Vittorio is a more recent character, maybe showcasing just how popular he is and how powerful Thirst design can be. This perk, even at best with the most value, falls completely flat against other perks like Prove Thyself, which is way more consistent and free. I gave a rework idea for this perk that hid the auras and scratch marks of survivors in a 24-meter radius in order to promote the idea of quick Gambit taking all of the action while the survivors keep doing their thing. The other solution would be buffing this perk, and I don't want any perk that boosts generator speeds to be buffed. Coming in with our first significant drop in pick rate with a 0.05% difference, we have Self-Preservation, a perk from Yunjin that perfectly fits the character. Whenever a survivor is injured 16 meters from you, your scratch marks, blood, and grunts of pain are hidden for 10 seconds. Now, I guess this perk is good because the effect itself is not bad, but honestly, it is not worth it at all in an in-game situation. First of all, if a killer injures another survivor close to you, then there is a high chance that they are just going to continue chasing the other survivor unless they have visual contact with you, in which case this perk doesn't help that much. The only true way to make this perk shine is with a body block from another survivor while you are injured, which basically gives you a pocket lucky break that will almost guarantee that you escape the chase as long as you break line of sight. But honestly, when considering that there are perks that do its effect way better like Parental Guidance or Lucky Break, then there is no real reason to ever equip this perk in game. And unlike the other stealth perks in the game, this one requires another survivor to get hurt, so you are codependent of another player just like Blood Pact was. So overall, there is no point in bringing this perk as a survivor besides the novelty of it. Poised is a very interesting case of a perk, as it's the second oldest one featured in this video, and it has not received any type of buff since its release with Jane, so it has been unchanged for 4 years, despite being one of the least used perks in the game. The concept of this perk is simple. Every time a generator is repaired, your scratch marks disappear for 10 seconds. On paper it sounds kinda cool, but you will then realize that this perk has the same fate as Coupe de Grace. It is a fun perk that becomes very situational due to the way it's dependent on generators being repaired. The maximum amount of value you might get from this perk is 5 times per match, but in reality, in order to get value, you would have to be chased while a generator is popped, and if you are a solo survivor, you cannot tell that immerse Claudette to start working on a gen while you are distracting the killer. So that's 5 situational chances of getting value, when you can just equip Lucky Break or Distortion and do Poised's job better. However, with the progress icons in the HUD, I think it's easier than ever to try and get value out of this perk, and especially if you combine it with Dark Sense, since it will give you the aura reading during those 10 seconds of the killer. So really, this perk has good intentions behind it and can be called underrated by some, but the issue is that the requirement of generators having to be repaired makes this very hard to use consistently. We didn't even cover the problems of having 2 generators repaired at almost the same time, which wastes 1 instance of the perk, or the fact that not always 5 generators are repaired in a match. It's also another instance of a perk working best when another survivor is good, as the only way to get use of this perk individually is to sprint burst away from a completed generator in order for the killer not to find you. When you really think about it, Freddy being released so early in the game's life cycle means that he will forever be stuck in his poor, no voice line state, because I am sure that if he were to be released now, he would have gotten voice lines just like Pinhead or Wesker. Red Herring is another perk that for the time of release was very unique in concept, but it would have benefited way more had it been released now with perks like Wiretap, Blast Mine or Flashbang. Red Herring's activation and usage is very time consuming for the effect it has, which is making a fake loud notification for the killer once you enter a locker. The issue is that this perk can be completely useless, as killers might ignore the effect of the perk, so most of the time you won't even feel the impact of red herring on your match, unlike with a perk like Blast Mine or even Head On. It's just like the Pebble perk, Diversion. It's a meme tier status that will almost never get any value. No survivor will use this seriously or as a part of a meta build, as its use will almost always be exclusive to a meme match with friends or for a video. At the very least, Zarina got off the record, so it's okay if she has one bad perk on her arsenal. You know, I am actually very impressed that Up the Ante is not the #1 perk in this video, because for my heart it absolutely is. Not only is this by far the oldest perk in this video, as it was released in December of 2016 with Ace, but it's also possibly one of the most useless perks for solo survivors in the entire game. All this perk does is give you luck for a maximum of 9%. Well, if you watched my outdated mechanics video, you would know that luck actually is basically useless and it does not increase the quality of items in chests. The only purpose of this perk is to stack it with luck offerings and slippery meat to escape from hooks, which means you need a full team of coordinated survivors ready to do so. So you would have to bring 4 survivors, 4 very rare salty lip offerings, 4 Up the Antes, and 4 slippery meats in order to escape once from the hook by yourselves. And legit, that is the reason why 0.1% of players use this perk, because the other 0.03% of players are actually people trying to get the Adept Ace achievement. And funnily enough, there is no salvation from this perk without changing the fundamental mechanics of luck in DBD. You want to escape from the hook without having a Navy SEALs level of planning? Just bring Deliverance. Long-time viewers will remember how much I trashed on this absolute mess of a perk back then, as I called it one of the worst designed perks in the entire game, if not the worst designed perk overall. Not like any of the other Ash William perks are god tier, to be honest. The funny thing about this perk is that since the solo survivor hood improvements, Buckle Up got a complete undocumented reward where it now gives a 10% haste bonus to the person healed for 10 seconds, which is not bad at all. And it was done because the previous effect of this perk now became base kit. The fact that the vast majority of the players don't know that this has happened just proves what a big pile of trash this perk was back in the days, and just like the twins, its reputation is tarnished so bad that almost nobody wants to give it a second chance. I consider myself to be very knowledgeable about the content of Dead by Daylight and could name every single perk or even add-on effect. Inner Focus was one of the only perks that I legit had no idea what the name or effect is, not only because it is by far one of the most underwhelming perks introduced with a character that sadly got overshadowed by the devs themselves, Hadi, but also because its name is very similar to Inner Strength. Inner Focus reveals the aura of the killer for 5 seconds every time a survivor is injured 32 meters away from you, and it also reveals the scratch marks of your teammates. Why would you want to see them? I don't know, but it's a neat effect. In all honesty, this perk is not that bad. The only reason this perk is so low in pick rate is because it belongs to Hadi, as Inner Focus is even better than most of the perks in this video. Overzealous got a pretty nice buff, and Residual Manifest grants you flashlights, so it fits a very cool niche. However, Inner Focus is just a basic perk in terms of gameplay. What is extremely sad is that this perk is actually the perk that fits the character of Hadi the most, since it allows you to see the auras of elements that are normally hidden for most survivors, and Hadi has the power to see overlaps that reveal dark monsters or truths. So this perk being so low honestly is not deserved at all. And coming in with a 0.1% of usage rate, here is Corrective Action, a perk that belongs to Jonah. Imagine designing a new survivor for a DLC, and you end up choosing one of the most ridiculous default outfits as well as one of the worst lore in the game, basically dooming this survivor from the start. Now for some reason, decide to add to this character one perk that is completely aimed at new survivors as a worse version of an already existing perk, Technician, and you have Corrective Action, a perk that honestly makes me question so much whatever the perk design department in behavior is doing. Why would you add a beginner friendly perk on a character like Jonah that basically nobody is ever going to purchase? There is no reason to use this perk besides two very niche and very specific situations. The first is doing the Jonah Adept achievement, and the second is to play with a survivor friend that just bought the game and cooperate with them in a generator. The problem is that the new survivor has to learn how to hit skill checks, and if after 5 hours of playtime you are still missing them constantly, then maybe DBD is not for you, since hitting skill checks is by far the easiest part of the game. And again, if you really have trouble with this, just use Technician, since it comes with Feng Min, a very good beginner survivor, and it works without having to cooperate with another survivor. In fact, whenever you are playing with a beginner survivor friend, the best thing you can do as a player is take chases and distract the killer so your friend has an easier time. To waste your time cooperating with a generator only to be a babysitter for your friend's skill checks is very stupid. If this perk were a part of Technician itself, or if it were included with a free survivor, I wouldn't mind, but to have such a niche perk stuck on a DLC character that also so many players hate will solidify Corrective Action as one of the least used perks in the game ever, and until it gets a complete rework, this perk will stay in this placement too. What do you think of the placement of these perks? Are you surprised that some people don't use your favorite perk in this video? Thank you for watching and have a nice day.